celebrating 30 years of phenomenal trend forecasting. Here's Gerald Celente with today's trends in the news.
Hi, this is Gerald Celente. It's Friday, December 13th, 2019. And here are some of today's trends in the news. On the market front in Asia, Europe, America, everybody's up. Gold's up, oil's up, Bitcoin's up. It's an up day. What happened? Well, today was the day. Stocks were little changed on Friday after China and U.S. agreed to Phase 1 trade deal. Well, I guess that Phase 1 didn't go too far. But again, the big deal is going to come before the 2020 election. That's my forecast. That's right. Trade deal with China, peace treaty with Afghanistan, and North Korea as Trump gets ready to win the 2020 presidential reality show. And again, that's one of our top trends for 2020. Trump by default. The fault of the Democrats, because they don't have anybody out there that's going to beat them. But you have the details of the why and the how in your Trends Journal. And President Trump tweeted, quote, "We have agreed to a very large Phase 1 deal with China. They have agreed to many structural changes and massive purchases of agricultural products, energy, and manufactured goods, plus much more." But that's not the way the markets see it. So it only went up a little bit. And the other news on gold. Gold prices went up because the dollar went down a little bit. And here's what they say. Gold prices rose on Friday as investors remain cautious about the developments in the United States and China trade negotiations, while political uncertainties in the world's biggest economies further boosted the metal's safe haven appeal. So now gold is back over that 1475 mark. Very important, because you know me. I said that gold, if it goes below 1450, the next bottom is 1390. So it got to 1452 a few weeks ago. But it closed pretty strong, it's moving higher. That's pretty positive for gold at where it is right now. And it's looking good to get a little more golden. Oil. Oil prices went up today. They blamed it on the good news of the trade deal. You can't make this stuff up. The reason I see oil prices going up is because Saudi Arabia took Aramco public. And they had a lot of Saudis buying up those stocks, got it near $2 trillion. So to me, they're artificially propping up oil prices because the global slowdown is still there. The numbers coming in from China, India, all over the world are showing a slowdown. Much more supply than demand. Now, what's happening is they're also cutting back on how much oil they're going to produce each day. Remember, OPEC and its friends met, and they decided they're going to take off another 500,000 barrels a day. So now they're withdrawing about 1.7 million barrels a day from production. That's boosting oil prices higher. I believe they're near their peak. Fed puts rates on wait and see. We know about this. The Federal Reserve said they're going to wait to see what's going to go on before they raise rates. And we heard from our Federal Reserve Chairman, Jerome Powell, and he pointed out that, quote, "None of us have much of a sense of what the economy will look like in 2021. Duh. We do. The greatest depression coming your way. That's right. After all this artificial stimulus runs out, after the fiscal stimulus runs out, it's going to slow down very bad. But hey, the Fed's called it wrong all the time by their facts in their reports, what they wait for 5 years to come out. So that's the way they see it. Fed to keep rates steady until inflation picks up. Well, you know inflation's not going to pick up. And you know the reason why. It's my 5-0 formula. over capacity. You could make more stuff than you could ever have. People buying. Overproduction. They're doing it. And what else do we have? Overpopulation. You got a lot of people out there that work very cheaply. That's keeping prices down too. Online brought down prices, and open markets. You can bring in cheap stuff from all around the world. That's why you don't see inflation, and I'm the only one talking about that. Lagarde follows Draghi, ECB policy lead, but signals cautious optimism. Christine Lagarde set out her vision for the European Central Bank after her first rate-setting meeting as president, committing to maintain Mario Draghi's ultra-loose policy while sounding a more upbeat economic tone. You know what that is?
Bullshit.
You got it. So, again, they're talking about low inflation. Strategists bet on Wall Street bull run staying power. That's right. They're saying that the bull run is going to keep running next year, but not like this year, where you're seeing the S&P up over 26%. They're looking about a 4.5%. A lot of wild cards out there, too hard to call. And, you get it wrong. We get it wrong, so does Goldman Sachs. You don't always get life right all the time. And here we have a quote from Goldman Sachs, for instance, lowered its recommended allocation to stocks and added that cash should represent a competitive asset class to stocks for the first time in many years. That was then. Is it now? Fitch warns on Lebanon's high level of credit risk. I talk about this because, in your Trends Journal, we're talking about what's going on in Lebanon, one of the many countries around the globe that are facing financial crises and the people revolting in the streets. And it looks like it's going to get much, much worse. Turkey cuts rates for fourth time in bid to revive growth. Turkey's central bank slashed its benchmark interest rate for the fourth time this year as it pushed ahead with a drive to kickstart lending and revive economic growth. They were in a recession this year. They're pushing out of it now, but they're going deeper in debt. So the debt bubble keeps building globally. Investors braced for low return decade after years of robust gains. Again, another story about cautiously looking toward 2020. A lot of information here. You'll be reading about it in more detail in your Trends Journal on Tuesday. The weekly Trends Journal. We fill out all of what we're talking about now and give you more and more details. The only magazine like it in the world. It's tomorrow's news today, what's going on, what it means, and where it's going with the facts. India. Rural poor go hungry as economy stutters. Another very sad story about what's going on, the poverty increasing as the economies keep slowing. Again, this has nothing to do with trade wars. So, India's unemployment rate is 8.5%. For the past 6 quarters, India's economy has lost momentum. Growth has tumbled from an annual expansion rate of 8.1% in the first quarter of 2018 to just 4.5% in the third quarter of this year. And it's a lot worse. Banks fight shy of Hong Kong conflict in client research. Story in the Financial Times. Some leading Wall Street and European banks are avoiding mentions of Hong Kong's anti-government protests in the research they supply to clients out of fears they will upset Beijing and risk an increasingly important source of revenue. The story goes on to say how none of the research of the major banks talks about what's going on because they're afraid of losing business with China. It's all about the bottom line. Because, hey, morality, integrity, what does that count for? We got to count the bucks. Banks in the U.S. and Europe also face intense competition from Chinese investment banks, and they point out, which gives them additional impetus to avoid offending sensibilities to the mainland for risks of, quote, missing out on deals. Don't want to miss out on them deals, so don't talk about what's going on. It'll go away. Traders rush to protect against sterling fall as UK polls tighten. This is yesterday's Financial Times. Investors have scrambled to protect against a fall in the pound following the UK general election today, as polls suggest the race is tightening. The polls were wrong. The race wasn't tightening. Boris Johnson over there, Trump's cousin, they won the parliament by the biggest majority since the 1980s. I'm mentioning this because the Trends Journal was the first to forecast the Trump victory in our May 2016 edition, while everyone said in the polls he was going to lose. And with Trump's popularity rating now in the 40s, we're saying again he's going to win because he knows the art of the deal and he's playing against a bunch of rookies, as evidenced by the moronic impeachment process going on now that'll amount to nothing other than a waste of time, money, and energy. And going back to the UK, more in the populist movement. That's what this is about. Brexit, stage right. They want to leave. It's more and more of a populist movement, even though, of course, it's the same criminals in charge. U.S. House approves bill for record military spending. Isn't that great, huh? More money to kill, more money to murder. Give it to the military-industrial complex. Go back to work. We want your money. We want your money. Oh, yeah, we're going to defeat ISIS. Hey, that story that came out on Monday about how they lied to us about the Afghan war and said the progress they were making. Liars. Dirty, filthy, scum, rotten, lying pieces of garbage. Out of the news. Yep. Longest war in American history, going on 19 years. 19 years of murder. And more money for murder. And guess what? You got it. Only 41 Democrats voted against the bill. Occupy peace. This is the Christmas season. Hey, the birth of Christ. A little bit more than Black Friday and what are you going to buy for Christmas and is Santa coming to town? So, as a warrior for the Prince of Peace, I'm asking people to give a gift of peace by donating to Occupy Peace, because we have to stop this madness. We are not going to evolve to a higher society as long as this keeps going on. And with the trends that are developing, this money could be spent in a lot better ways. And one of them is our top trends, and that's the homeless crisis. Because the stupid people in charge are putting these homeless people in major cities. No, you don't spend that money like that. You know my plan. Put them on the beautiful countryside that we have, like where we are up here in Kingston, New York, near the old Borscht Belt. These old hotels are all dilapidated. Let's start rebuilding all these, not the hotels, but facilities for the homeless so they could be in beautiful places, farm, give them things to do rather than sticking them in these holes. So we have to prepare for the future, and we're not doing it with these kind of budgets that are going to kill people. Inspector accuses FBI of gross incompetence in handling of wiretap. You know about this, but I'm just mentioning it again to show how the intelligence agencies have zero intelligence. And this is even written by the toilet paper record, who can't stand Trump, and it's all for the Russiagate thing. They go on to say that the Justice Department's independent Inspector General, Michael Horowitz, and his team uncovered a staggeringly dysfunctional and error-ridden process in how the FBI went about obtaining and renewing court permission under the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act. And it goes on to say more and more about the incompetence and a waste of time, a waste of money, and a waste of our lives in terms of robbing us of our freedom, that these agencies could spy on us and do what they want at will. Germany and Russia strike back at U.S. threat of sanctions on gas pipeline. Germany and Russia have hit back at U.S. Congress, which went in that defense budget, by the way, over its decision to impose sanctions on the Nord Stream 2 gas pipeline. The United States is telling the Germans and the Russians they can't build this pipeline because that's not going to help the Ukrainians or the American gas companies that they want to sell the American gas to. By the way, they're closing down rigs all over this country because there's too much supply and not enough demand. This is an outrage, but that's all it has ever been. It's all about the bottom line, and that's all they care about. U.S. tightens screws on Iran with fresh shipping and air sanctions. Isn't that great? More economic terrorism against Iran. Let the people suffer more. Oh, you get them to really suffer, then they'll overthrow the government. The American military has not won a war since World War II, and as evidence, they continually lie, them and Washington, about how they're on the path to victory. And the same thing with Washington doing this economic terrorism against innocent people of Iran because they're the ones that are suffering, just as they did it in Venezuela. Oh, and now the stories are that guy Guaido, who declared himself president of Venezuela, remember that last January, all in your Trends Journal? Details. How the United States set the overthrow of the Maduro government? Bye-bye Guaido. He's a nobody no more. But look what they've done to the Venezuelan people. Put them more and more deeper into suffering with these economic sanctions. And what else do we have here? Pentagon says full Syria withdrawal may be years off. Hey, I thought Trump was getting all the troops out. Oh no, they were going to stay because you remember Trump actually said it, that he insists the U.S. had beaten ISIS and they were there for the oil. And you know what I've been saying? You think America would be in the Middle East if their major export was broccoli? But we won't talk about that. What about that impeachment process? And cave may possess world's earliest figurative art. They found this art in Indonesia, a dramatic panel of art dating back at least 43,900 years ago, 44,000 years ago. And you look at this art. No, it's not, just scribbles. It's sophisticated art. I'm mentioning this 44,000 years ago. They talked about art being in these caves. They have no clue who did it or what. The point that I'm making, we don't have a clue of how we got here, who we are. They keep finding these things. The last cave, I think, was like 30,000 years ago in Spain or France. But the world just began about 3,800 years ago to 10,000 years ago, according to the stupidity that they teach us in school. And FAA knew Boeing 737 MAX was risky, but allowed flights. Big story, in and out of the news. I make the point, whether it's the FAA, the FTC, it's all one big FUC, you know what. All these are, it's a revolving door. The people that are in these agencies they're from the corporations that they're supposed to be regulating. So lives are lost, whether it's with drugs, with the poisons they're putting in our food, or blowing you out of the air, and no one really cares. So don't forget to vote. Democrat or Republican. Keep it going. Keep us going down. Because cost of incarceration reaches record high. The average daily cost of incarceration in New York City has reached a record level. You know what that record level is? New York City spends, you ready? $337,524 to incarcerate one person for a full year, or roughly $925 a day. You could have a penthouse in the Plaza Hotel almost for that much. $925 a day, $337,000 a day. They go on to say that, according to the report, management has not been a strong point at the Department of Correction. Management? These are stupid people, and they're in every aspect of government. They're official jerks. They're official imbeciles, and we pay for them. And that's what you're going to see more and more of. As the economy goes down, the governments are going to be growing bigger and bigger. More fiscal stimulus, stealing more of our money to waste it. So, what do? We need a new way, and you know my way is direct democracy. Take this out of the hands of the liars, cowards, freaks, fools, psychopaths, megalomaniacs, sociopaths that are running and ruining the world. This is Gerald Celente, and that's some of today's trends in the news.